Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Today we are at Rosemead High School and we are grateful that you're participating in today's community open house. And before we get started, I'd just like to share with you, give you an overview of what it is that we will be discussing today. So we will go ahead and provide a quick overview of the by-trustee election formation process and the timeline. We'll also have a presentation of the draft maps. We will have a discussion on the draft maps where we can go into more detail regarding each of the maps and talk about the composition of the maps and where we will be requesting your feedback regarding the composition of the maps as they are now. And then we will go ahead and provide a recap of any of the comments that we have received so far. So with that, we'll go ahead and move on to provide a little bit of background as to why we're here. Just a reminder that the El Monte Union High School District is transitioning from at-large to by-trustee area elections. And the district went ahead and announced this direction back in May. And we began with a series of community information sessions to allow the community to become aware of the fact that this change was happening. And to also let them know that this is a district initiated process. Now this is key because the district is taking the initiation to make this change in order to comply with the California Voting Rights Act. And in order to do this, the district has went ahead and consulted with a team of demographers and a public outreach team. And so we together are moving this process forward. Now, the first elections, by-trustee area elections for the El Monte Union High School District will begin November 2022. Now, as part of the transition process, the district has committed to make this a transparent, inclusive, and community-focused process. That means that all comments that are received will be recorded and taken into consideration, and that we want to make sure that the district and the community understands the why and how this is going to take place. It's very important that the community understands what this transition means and how they can participate. As equally important is that we meet all legal deadlines and to make sure that all maps meet legal and regulatory criteria as well. Now, as I mentioned, the mapping process initially the process began with the community information sessions in May, and the district officially kicked off the mapping process in August with a public hearing. And the mapping process is important in order to engage and educate and empower the public. Now, the process allows the community to have a say-so as far as how the district will look moving forward once the by-trustee areas have been determined. And part of the process, we hope that the comments that we receive from the community will include information on what the communities of interest are. We would like for you to share your opinions on how the trustee areas are divided once you get a chance to view the draft maps, and to provide suggestions on individual districts or entire plans. So you can either provide comments on an entire map or maybe perhaps just on a small portion of the map, a specific trustee area that perhaps you are concerned about or you would like to share some information on. And now to share a little bit of the timeline. In May, again, we started the information sessions, and then in August, we kicked off the mapping process with a public hearing. And the public hearing focused on reintroducing the by-trustee process. And then we had another hearing again in September, where we discussed the criteria and the composition for the trustee areas. Now, we on September 29th had an initial posting of draft maps that were shared with the public, with the board and with the public. And then on October 6th, we had the formal presentation to the board during a hearing. And now we are in the community public engagement process as far as wanting to get feedback from the community and making sure that the community is providing that very important feedback during the community open houses from the 13th through the 28th. You'll have an opportunity to attend an open house. There are 5 set, and they are school site open houses. We have held them at various high schools so far. Today we are again at Rosemead High School. We've had one at Arroyo and another one at South El Monte. And so we will have 2 additional open houses on one on the 27th and one on the 28th. And then we move again to the next series of scheduled public hearings on November 3rd, where we will go ahead and introduce any additional maps that we may have available. Those will be presented formally to the board, as well as during the December hearing on December 8th and for January 5th as well. Now, after that, we begin to narrow down the draft maps that we have available, and we plan to have an opportunity to have that occur during the public hearing on January 5th. So that we'll see some of the maps that have been introduced. Some of those will go ahead and have key maps that will be taken into consideration. And the final vote on a map will occur on February 2nd. And so that takes us back to the November 2022, where we would have our first by trustee area elections. Now, I want to go ahead and share a little bit of what we've done so far. Again, we've started the process with community information sessions to educate the community about the process, about the purpose of this transition, and to outline the feedback, the timeline, and to provide an opportunity to share with the community as far as how they can go ahead and provide feedback and participate in the process. We've had up until now 3 public hearings, and we've had 3 initial draft maps that have been shared with the community. NDC has drafted 3 initial maps with corresponding election plans, and those are available for review on the website. They're also posted on the district office and district schools. We've also had 2 group presentations, and this is an opportunity to provide an interested group of community members with a smaller, intimate presentation and discussion on the process. And so we've been able to have those, and we welcome any requests from any of our community groups and organizations. If they're interested, please contact the superintendent's office and let them know that you're interested in a group presentation, and we will coordinate that effort with you. And we've also taken the opportunity to be at 6 community events that the school district has held. They had back to school nights where we had an information table. We were able to share some information with the attendees and talk to them about the process to make sure that they are aware that this change is happening, and to provide them information about upcoming meetings and hearings. We've also have sent out informational postcards and flyers. Again, these materials are available at the district schools and at active community locations through the district. We've been fortunate to be able to reach out to some of our community organizations, such as our chambers, and they've been gracious to allow us to have these informational materials at their offices or their places where they meet, and so that they can also assist us with sharing and disseminating the information to the public. We also have a district formation webpage that was launched, and this is specifically to provide information on this process. And the website provides very important information and opportunities to become engaged. We do have the draft maps available. We have an interactive map viewer where you can take a look, a closer look, a detailed look at each of the draft maps, and you can possibly even think about how you would create a map using this tool, and you would also be able to look at the maps in greater detail. You can also provide online comments here and submit those directly to us, and view some of the information that has already been shared with the public. Everything is housed here on this website, and we encourage you to be, to visit it regularly, to sign up to receive updates, and it's a very valuable resource as we move through this process. We've also gone ahead and had some newspaper ads. We do social media, press releases, and e-blasts, which have been sent out to the district community. And like I said, we reached out to some of our community groups and key stakeholders to ask them to partner with the district to help inform the community, because this is something that affects not only the people that come, the students that are part of this district, the parents, the grandparents, but really anyone that lives within the district boundaries that is a voter. Anyone that is a voter and that will be able to vote for their trustee, their board of trustees, is affected and impacted by this change. So what comes next as far as opportunities for participation? So we do have, as I mentioned, public hearings. We have additional hearings, November and December. January and February are the next hearings, and these all take place at the district boardroom. You can participate in person or virtually. Meetings begin at 6, and then during that regular meeting, there will be a public hearing, and that's when we will make a presentation, usually provide an update as far as what has changed, where we are in the process, and we have an opportunity then to talk again about the draft maps, introduce any additional maps. So that will occur during these public hearings. We also have an opportunity to have a one-on-one meeting by appointment with the mapping team. You might be interested in having that one-on-one discussion with the demographer and asking specific questions regarding the map, or maybe you're interested in forming your own map. And so this is a great opportunity to have that one-on-one discussion, and we accept meetings by calling the school district office at 626-444-9005, extension 9805. And we ask that you call at least 72 hours in advance to schedule. Our next opportunity for the mapping team appointments will be October 28th from 10 to 2. We also have the next open houses that are scheduled to take place will be October 27th, as I mentioned, and that will be at Mountain View High School. The next one will be October 28th from 4 to 6 at El Monte High School. Now, I want to point out, as you can see here on this slide, we've had a series of 5 scheduled. We've had them at the various different high schools, and we created an opportunity for the public to be able to attend a public hearing either in person or virtually, and to be able to go to any of these high schools if they desire. Doesn't mean that because you live within the community nearest to Rosemead High School that you needed to come to this particular meeting today. All of the meetings will consist of the same program. The same information will be shared at all of the meetings. So you're welcome to attend any of the meetings at any point during the process. Again, we do have language assistance available, particularly in Spanish, Cantonese, and Vietnamese. And if you would like to make that request, we do ask that you call the superintendent's office at 626-444-9005, extension 9805. And so we hope to see you at our next open house, either on the 27th or the 28th, or maybe both. We also, again, just a reminder, we do have the opportunity to schedule the group presentations. And so if you belong to a service club or any other community group and you're interested in having this information shared with your membership, please give us a call at 626-444-9005, extension 9805, at least 1 week in advance to schedule. And so now I'd like to go ahead and turn this over to our demographer, Dr. Justin Levitt, who will be discussing our draft maps in greater detail.
Well, thank you, Claudia, for that introduction, and good morning to all of you who are watching here today. My name is, as Claudia said, Dr. Justin Levitt with National Demographics, and I'm here to give you a little bit of an idea of what exactly we look at when drawing district maps, what the process of looking at the maps includes, and talking a little bit about the 3 draft maps we have available today, and what the next steps might be in terms of how we can go from here to the final map adopted by the district. Now, when we look at drawing districts for the first time or redrawing district boundaries, there's a set of rules or criteria that we use in order to balance these district areas. And basically they fall into 2 major groups. Federal laws are things that the Supreme Court and other federal courts tell us we must comply with. And first, of course, is equal population. Each district or each trustee area, as we call them in school districts, must have about the same number of total residents. This includes everyone. It includes non-citizens, it includes non-voters. Everyone counted as part of that census count is part of this equal population number. And so for the district, that number is about 35,333 residents. And we got that number from the 2020 census, or specifically the California state adjustment to that number, to the 2020 census. In addition, we have to look at the Voting Rights Act. And so we have to look at where protected classes, groups that have historically faced discrimination or barriers to registration and voting, reside throughout the district. In particular, even though the district is over 90% non-white, we still are looking at where Asian American and Latino communities are located throughout the district. While race cannot be the only factor or even the predominant factor in the creation of a trustee area, it's one of many factors that have to be taken into account altogether when looking at the final map. In addition to these federal laws, we also have a set of traditional districting principles. These are factors that the courts have recognized over the years can play and should play a role in the districting process. However, these are factors that have to be balanced against each other. So it's up to us to try to figure out, and when I say us, I mean both myself and the community, how much to weight each of these different ideas. For example, we talk a lot about communities of interest, groups that have shared issues, shared problems, shared concerns. Perhaps that could be related to the school attendance areas, perhaps that could be related to the cities and communities that make up the district, or other factors like the traditional neighborhoods and other areas that have a shared history. One of the big questions to ask you is which communities of interest need to stay together and which ones need to be divided. For example, we often hear in school districts that parents want to be sure that each high school attendance area has at least 2 trustees representing it. And that way we make sure that no trustee has complete ownership of a particular school. And so to the extent we can, we're going to look at that as we go through the different maps and try to piece together what works best for the district. We also might want to consider compactness and contiguity. Both of those concern the shape of the district. Does it make logical sense to people who reside in the district, people who reside in each individual trustee area? And we can help do this by following natural boundaries, major roads, for example, that follow commercial corridors rather than jogging through neighborhoods. Maybe even following rivers, canals, freeways, and other large features that really divide neighborhoods from each other. In addition, we look at respecting the voters' choices. This is the principle that the voters in the district have elected a board, and that the districting process shouldn't be used as a way of particularly targeting a board member. And finally, planned future growth. That's the idea that if we know that there might be development in a certain part of the district, we might underpopulate or have fewer people than that 35,333 number, taking into account that a neighborhood or area will grow more over the next decade. Now, we can't go above that equal population limit of 10% difference between the largest and smallest, but we do have a little bit of flexibility to play around with these traditional districting principles. Now, let me talk a little bit about how we choose the map. We started at our last public hearing introducing 3 draft maps. Now, I don't anticipate any of those 3 draft maps will be the final draft map adopted. And that's a healthy part of the process, because our first attempt at a draft map, or the draft maps, I should say, is really just that. We're looking at what the different options are across the district, and then hearing from the community, from you, from the board, from other interested parties, whether or not the maps serve the district well. And based on all of that feedback, we're going to come back with additional draft maps. And throughout this process, we're going to go back and forth, revising draft maps, eliminating or reducing options that simply don't work for the district, and adding options that capture what the district needs better. Hopefully, if we get a lot of draft maps for this next public hearing, the board will take all of our initial maps and say, this is the 2 or 3 concepts that we really think are the focus of our discussion. And we'll go back out with those maps. And then the board will say, okay, now we've heard again from the community. Here's the draft map we like best. And so it really has this not long, but this back and forth process to pick the final draft map. This map will then go to the County Committee on School District Organization. They're the board in LA County that has to approve any changes to the election system, including this change from an at-large system to a trustee area election system. And just to kind of help understand, we can like parts of a map without liking the entire map. So if you particularly think that the Rosemead area, and I'm only using Rosemead because that's where we're here this morning, works in a particular map or doesn't work, you can be neutral to everything else and just focus in on the one district or one community or one area, or comment on the whole map. It's really your prerogative. It's really what you want to do. And so looking at the 3 draft maps that we start with, each of these 3 maps is population balanced. Each one has about a 3.5% population deviation. That means that the difference in the populations is really small. And we've kept it small to really make sure that we can follow those other boundaries and adjust if necessary. That gives us a lot of space to do that. So we call them by colors just to kind of indicate them, help us understand the separation between green, yellow, and purple maps. Our first map is the green map. That's because it's first alphabetically. And really what this one tries to do is really use the freeway and the Rio Hondo River, Rio Hondo, to delineate the district boundaries. We have 2 trustee areas, areas 4 and 5, completely south of the 5 freeway. And we've put all of the Rosemead area in trustee area 3. This map, like one of the other maps we'll show you today, has 3 majority Latino trustee areas, areas 2, 4, and 5, and 1 majority Asian American trustee area in area 3. Area 1 has a good mix of Latino and Asian American population. What we try to do in this map is draw relatively compact districts. And of course, we've included an election sequence. Based on what we know the County Committee on School District Organization does, we include a suggested sequence that basically is which areas will be up in which years. This map would put areas 3, 4, and 5 up in 2022 for election, and areas 1 and 2 would be up for election in 2024. And that's a common thread you'll see in a lot of these maps. Looking at comparing this to the yellow, one of the big differences between the green and the yellow map you'll notice is in the south. So instead of a more vertical division, kind of following Tyler Avenue, this map uses a more horizontal division. That really helps us to divide South El Monte as a community, making sure that both areas 4 and 5 have substantial population from both El Monte and South El Monte. This also does include 2 high school facilities, Mountain View and South El Monte, that are both in trustee area 5 in this map. This also creates a more equitable division of Temple City. So half of the population in Temple City is in area 3 and half is in area 4. And what this map really tried to do was divide those cities as communities that are within the district. Other than Rosemead, a lot of the other cities, South El Monte, and Temple City in particular, are well divided between at least two different trustee areas. This map also creates 3 majority Latino trustee areas. That's areas 2, 4, and 5, and 1 majority Asian American area in area 3. And just like area 1 in the green map, that's a bit of a mix. It's more Asians than any other group, but it's a mix of people of both Asian and Latino ancestry. And finally, looking at the purple map, we did want to look at an option that kind of looks a little bit different, just to kind of throw an idea out there. This map creates an equitable division of Rosemead, putting about half of the city's population in the district, area 1, and the other half in area 2. This map actually allows us to create 2 majority Asian trustee areas in areas 1 and 4, as well as our 3 majority Latino trustee areas. And just to give you a sense, the overall population of the district is about 55% Latino and about 40% Asian American. So that gives us kind of that most equitable breakdown in this map, although it does require some divisions of cities like Rosemead. And that's really the trade-offs that we want to think about as we're moving through this map. This one creates, I like to call this the directional map, because there's a very clear northern district, southern district, and eastern district. And district 2 in this map, that's the blue district, doesn't touch any of the boundary edges of the district. It's a real central district or trustee area. And so that really gives us a very different option to think about. And, you know, hey, if that works for the district, we want to put it out there. Because that's what this process is about. Looking at the options, looking at the alternatives, and trying to figure out on the basis of that, what works and what doesn't work for the communities. And it may look very different, by the way, for the cities that make up the district. If, for example, the city of El Monte were going to district elections and drawing districts, they might choose completely different boundaries than the school district does. And that's okay, because the issues that make up those communities that define our school district are different from those that define our city or Congress or state assembly or any other layer of government. And so that kind of gives you a, you know, I call it the 10,000-foot overview, the broad scale analyses of this district. Would like to kind of turn it back over to Claudia in a second, but would like to now ask you, what you think of these maps and whether you have any questions or comments. And so with that, I'll turn it back over to Claudia to talk about them.
Thank you, Dr. Levitt, for the introduction and discussion on each of the maps. And so now we'd like to go ahead and invite the community to think about the information that you just heard regarding each of the 3 maps that we have presented. And think about things like, what do you like, what don't you like about each of the maps? Again, are there any changes that you would like to see? Are there any communities of interest or boundaries that perhaps you didn't see reflected in these draft maps that you would like to share with the mapping team? Perhaps you are interested in seeing a certain district being represented or divided in a particular way. These are all valid pieces of information that we welcome and that we would like to hear from each and every one of you. What I would like to recommend is that you go ahead and visit the website. We mentioned the website again, and so that is mentioned here, listed on the slide. It's El Monte Union High School District _area-trustees.com, and you can go ahead and submit comments online directly through the website, or if you'd like to go ahead and submit comments, inquiries by email, you can also do that at bytrustee.area@enuhsd.org. So with that, we'd like to thank you for taking the time to participate and join us this morning, and we hope that you will go ahead and share some of this information with your community, with your relatives, your family, and hopefully we can go ahead and hear from you. Submit an online comment or an email, attend one of the public hearings or one of the upcoming community open houses. And we definitely would like to hear from you and hear your thoughts about these initial 3 maps that have been presented. And do know that there will be additional maps that will be presented throughout the process. And all of those will be available on the website. And we welcome your comments. And so again, thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Dr. Levitt. And we hope that you have a great day, rest of your day. Thank you.